The Bundy Bunch, occupying the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, have invited the ire of many, notably the Burns Paiute tribe. According to an Inquisitor article linked below, quote, about 130 years ago, members of the Paiute tribe were marched off the land where the refuge now sits by the United States Cavalry. Tribal leaders note that scores of members were killed during the long march out of the land, close quote. In other words, the Burns Paiute tribe was conquered. It was unjust. The United States continues to act like a conquering empire around the world today, and that should stop. But it's a historical fact. Another historical fact is that while the United States Cavalry stole that land from the Burns Paiute, the United States simply squatted on more than 2 million acres of cowlitz land. That's my tribe. We were never conquered. My cowlitz ancestors were willing to negotiate rather than fight. Like the Burns Paiute tribe, we had to wait, and it took more than 130 years for the tribal government to even agree to sit down at the negotiating table with us. And while the government returned about 10 acres to the Burns Paiute, the Cowlitz bought the land that forms our initial reservation, and yet it remains in dispute with the wealthy Grand Ronde tribe about 100 miles away, and the moneyed elite in Clark County, Washington State, litigating the matter in federal court. So I sympathize with the plight of the Burns Paiute, but I also sympathize with the cause of the Bundy Bunch, and while I do not approve of them occupying the refuge, albeit peacefully, I have to ask, why is it that the only time we hear of tribes getting up in arms about things like this is when it's to support the federal government doing it to people today, what that same federal government did to our Indian ancestors 100 and 200 years ago? What's more, the government is still doing this to Indians, too. In 2007, I met Carrie Dan, a Shoshone elder who, with her late sister Mary, has been fighting the Bureau of Land Management over exactly the same issue. In other words, the BLM is doing the same thing to American Indian ranchers that it is doing to white ranchers like the Bundys. So of all the people in the United States who should sympathize with people like the Bundys, Indian tribes should be loud and proud in opposition to the BLM. Instead, we see tribal leaders rallying their members in support of the federal government committing the same crimes today that it most aggressively perpetrated during the 1800s against Indian tribes. Back in the 1980s, I had the privilege to witness Russell Means and Ron Paul compete in Seattle to be the Libertarian candidate for president. In his speech, Russell Means said that what the federal government has done to Indians, it would do to the rest of the country. His words were true. They are doing it now. My question is, why are tribal leaders supporting this? For the Backlash at Backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.